Hello everyone, this is Dr. Vikas Kumar. On behalf of Chetan Bharat Learning, once again, I welcome everybody to this yet another session on English with specific reference to CLAT. Right, so here we go. Let's begin. Supposing half a dozen or a dozen men were cast ashore from a wreck on an uninhabited island और उनको कहाँ छोड़ दिया जाए? Left to their own resources. वहां छोड़ दिया जाए उनको जहां पर कोई ज्यादा लोग होते नहीं हैं. Own resources, one of course, according to this capacity, would be to rather set to one business and one to another. The strongest to dig and to cut wood. अब यही resources रह जाएंगे उनके पास. ऐसी जगह पर वो फंस गए. And to build huts for the rest. Right? Huts भी बनानी पड़ेंगी. The most dexterous to make shoes out of bark. आसान नहीं होता ना bark से पेड़ों की जो bark है उससे shoes बनाना. And coats out of skins. So all those primitive things जो कभी early man किया करता था. The best educated to look for iron or lead in the rocks, and to plan the channels irrigation के लिए कि किस तरह से irrigate किया जाएगा fields को. But though their labors were thus naturally severed, that small group, छोटा सा group of shipwrecked men would understand well enough, क्या समझेंगे वो, that the speediest progress was to be made by helping each other, not by opposing each other. So when you are in trouble and you oppose your teammates, you land deeper in trouble. You further sink into trouble, right? And they would know that this help could only be properly given, अच्छे से, given so long as they were frank and open in their relations. तो relationship में अगर frankness है, openness है, only then they can help one another, और कठिन से कठिन problem में भी they can come out of it. They can rather transpire as victorious. And the difficulties which each lay under properly explained to the rest, so that any appearance of secrecy or separateness or isolation in the actions of any of them would instantly and justly be looked upon with suspicion by the rest. So ऐसे में ये natural है, if somebody looks separated, isolated, aloof, अगर वो mix नहीं हो रहा है, टीम में, टीम ट्रबल में है, everybody is gelling together pretty well, अगर कोई isolated रहने को choose करता है, तो फिर उसको suspicion से देखा जाएगा. That is natural, right? As the sign of some selfish or foolish proceeding in the part of the individual. So ये भी माना जा सकता है कि कोई clandestine motive है इनका, या फिर वो stupid है, जो टीम में involve नहीं हो रहे हैं, and because of that, the person who's isolated is not allowing the team to flourish together. All right, here's an example. The scientific man found to have gone out at night, unknown to the rest. लोगों को, बाकी लोग को पता ही नहीं. To alter the sluices, the others would think, and in all probability, rightly think. क्या समझ रहे हैं? That he wanted to get the best supply of water. वो पानी की सप्लाई अपनी फील्ड के लिए लेने गए हैं. And if the shoemaker refused to show them where the bark grew, which he made the sandals of, they would naturally think, and in all probability rightly think, यानी हक होगा उनको ये सोचने का, that he didn't want them to see how much there was of it, and that he meant to ask from them more corn and potatoes in exchange. ये सारे वो हैं, speculations हैं. बात ये है कि अगर clearly नहीं बताया जाएगा, तो चाहे आप सही पर्पस से भी जाओगे, अगर आप टीम को इन्फॉर्म नहीं करोगे, कम्युनिकेशन अच्छा नहीं होगा टीम में, सो फिर सस्पिशंस विद रिस्पेक्ट टू योर इंटेंट, योर इंटेंशंस, योर सोच, योर आइडियोलॉजी, योर साइकोलॉजी, योर साइकी, राइट, वो क्रीप अप होना शुरू हो जाएंगे अमंग द टीम मेंबर्स. इतना सा ये कह रहे हैं. एंड thus although each man would have a portion of time to himself in which he was allowed to do what he chose without let or inquiry. so long as he was working in that particular business which he had undertaken for the common benefit. अब any secrecy, पहले चाहे कितना भी common benefit के लिए he might have worked, any secrecy on his part would be immediately supposed to mean something wrong, something negative, and would require to be accounted for. और उसकी responsibility उनको लेनी पड़ेगी because people will ask, right? The other team members will ask, or put an end to, या खत्म करना पड़ेगा. And this all the more because whatever the work might be, certainly there would be difficulties about it, which when once they were well explained might be more or less done away. So again, it goes down to communication. तो वो तब तक रहेंगी जहन में टीम मेंबर्स के वो प्रॉब्लम्स, वो जो थॉट्स एंड दो सस्पिशंस, जब तक द पर्सन एक्सप्लेन्स. सो जब वो एक्सप्लेन कर देंगे, देन all the suspicion is likely to fade away, likely to go away, right? But it will be done with the help of the rest, so that assuredly every one of them would advance with his labor, not only more happily, but more profitably and quickly. So it will help the team. So good communication is the need of any team, right? By having no secrets, there should be no secrets in teams, frankly bestowing and frankly receiving such help as this. That's all. I mean, teamwork is all about it. Being transparent. When a dozen men are cast away on an imaginary island, the best educated would look for metals in rocks because metals can be used to make weapons. Why only weapons? Such an island probably has unexploited resources. How does he know? He may find it beneath him to dig or cut or make shoes. He is suited for such work. Why? When a dozen men are cast away, 12 people, the best educated would look for metals. The best educated, what will he or she do? Suited for such work, metals and rocks, because he is educated. Therefore, if he or she is the best educated, the others are less educated, right? So that is called teamwork. If there is a person who's the highest educated, obviously you'll give more technical work to that person, right? It is not about another task being considered lowly. It is about finding the right job for the right person. So naturally, D is the best choice. Next one. Here we go. The question is, the author states that any appearance of secrecy or separateness would instantly and justly be looked upon with suspicion, so it will be doubted, right? From this statement, we may infer that what is secret is not what is separate. Not at all. What is secret is definitely separate. Secrecy is not exactly the same as separateness. We cannot infer this because secrecy is exactly the same as separateness according to the passage. It is natural to be suspicious of secrecy. It is not natural to be suspicious of secrecy. It is rather in a teamwork. It only takes an instant for a relationship to deteriorate. Yes, only an instance. And then the communication is scrapped. Totally. Fine, next one. The instance of the shoemaker who refuses to show his source and asks for more corn and potatoes is an example of a strong bargain. Where is the bargain? No? Unfair practice. It is unfair practice. The system of barter not at all. No. Next one. Well, according to the author, whatever one's work might be, relationships are going to be part of it. Not necessarily. One cannot keep complaining. No. One should expect others to assure of help and advance our labors. No. One must offer help to others in order to receive help. How? According to the author, whatever one's work might be, जो भी है किसी का काम, one must offer help to others because he's talking from the point of view of a team. शुरू में ही it was said that 12 people were left. So in case of a team, you have to do this. Next one. The author's belief is that for progress to happen, a team should consist of people with multiple talents. Not necessarily. Cooperation among team members is essential. This is a good choice. One must deal with those who are secretive. No, not deal with. Transparency among all concerned is mandatory. There are two choices, B and D, which makes sense, right? But this may happen though. Cooperation, it may happen. However, people may still be secretive. Transparency may not happen despite cooperation. So if people cooperate but still have secrets, right, the results will not be great. They will still cooperate. They will say, ठीक है, मैं आपका काम कर देता हूँ, मैं आपको help कर देता हूँ. That is cooperation. इकट्ठा काम करना, cooperate करना, right? But if you have secrets, if you're not transparent in that cooperation will remain but may not yield best results. This has to be the correct answer. The writer makes a hypothesis. What is a hypothesis? A theory that may or may not be true, which can be related to communities in general. Yes, because we are talking about human beings, right? Or even animals for that matter. An imaginary island, this is only an example. An ideal world of talented people, there is no ideal world. A primitive and unsophisticated world, no. These are only examples. Right, the next one, the perennial. What is perennial? Ever continuing. Debate over gender differences threatens to remain inconclusive. It is still inconclusive. Stereotypes pertaining to male superiority and female submissiveness could be traced to earlier ages where assigned roles were needed as survival measures. Absolutely right. Stereotyping है ना? Females के ये roles and males के ये. But can we today see a swing away from these stereotypes? Do we see so? Or have they established a stranglehold, a grip on our perceptions? I think they have. In this gendered world, we continue to live with notions. We persist living with ideas that one's gender determines one's skills and preferences, from toys and colors to career choices. Absolutely correct. My dear friends, there are many people who still believe that women don't drive well. That is a typical example of stereotyping, which is so very unfair. There are certain women who drive really well, and there are certain men who drive very poorly. So, these things have got, any profession in fact has got nothing to do with gender. You see cricketers, men and women. You see wrestlers, men and women both. You see pilots, men and women. You see dancers, swimmers, everything. So the girl child will be presented with a Barbie doll, naturally. People do so. While the boy child will receive a Lego set. So does that mean that our brains are different? No, rather we are conditioned in that manner. This myth has been exploded by a British professor of cognitive neuroimaging. उनके research जो था ना, it attempts to establish how these stereotypes change, shift, twist our ideas of ourselves. ये stereotyping से हम अपने बारे में ideas बनाते हैं. That is what she has proved. She examines how science has been misinterpreted or misused to ask the wrong questions. Rather than challenging the status quo, she urges us to move beyond a binary view of people's brains and instead to see these as highly individualized. हम लोग हैं profoundly adaptable, बिल्कुल, and full of unbounded potential. हम में बहुत potential है. Her conclusive findings establish that no brain differences can be found. Brain में कैसे difference हो सकता है? Female, male, दोनों की brain एक जैसी होती है. That are solely gender related. Gender कैसे brain को determine करेगा? It cannot. In other words, modern neuroscientists have identified no decisive category defining differences between the brains of men and women. यानी जितना strong brain men का है, उतना ही स्ट्रॉन्ग ब्रेन विमेन का भी है, या जितना स्ट्रॉन्ग ब्रेन विमेन का है उतना ही अच्छा ब्रेन मेन का भी है, ऐसे भी कह सकते हैं। अब as a result of these findings, we owe it to ourselves what? To dump. अब तो बहुत जरूरी है कि हम इन मिथ्स को हम निकालें अपने दिमाग से and look at ourselves afresh. फिर से खुद को देखें. What should be recognized? क्या पहचानना है हमें? That male and female brain debate is a distraction, my dear friends, besides being based on inaccuracies. वो एक distraction है. It is not letting us grow, not letting us use our potential to the best of our ability. It is possibly harmful. Why? Because it can be used as a hook to justify saying there is no point in girls doing science because they don't have a science wali brain. Why is it dangerous? हाँ, लड़कियों को घर का काम आना चाहिए क्योंकि उनका ब्रेन वैसा है, लड़कों का वैसा नहीं है, लड़के तो साइंटिस्ट होते हैं। ये कहना बहुत डेंजरस है एक सोसाइटी में, बिकॉज वी आर स्टीरियोटाइपिंग, वी आर लिमिटिंग, we are rather wasting the superb brains of women, girls. हम वो यूज ही नहीं कर रहे. So it's a total wastage of resources. And घर का काम दोनों को आना चाहिए, खाना दोनों खाते हैं. Or compelling boys to opt for science because their brains are shaped for that subject. ऐसा तो कुछ भी नहीं है. It can also condemn boys for being emotional. This is called dehumanizing. जब लड़कों को ये कहा जाता है, अरे लड़का क्यों रोता है? That is so disappointing. This is seen as a feminine trait, correct? And most dangerous of all, to proclaim that boys, not girls, are meant to lead. Both are meant to lead, provided they have the leadership qualities. वो चाहे लड़का हो या लड़की. The research of a British professor of cognitive neuroimaging has succeeded in establishing that the brains of men and women are alike. No. Not alike. Science needs to challenge the status quo. Science does not need to challenge. We need to challenge. Society must break away from attempts at stereotyping gender issues. This is not her finding. Mind you, this is the general idea. The potential of a human brain is not directly linked to gender. This is what he has found. Exactly this. See, there's very little difference between the options, among the options rather. Next one, by referring to the world as gendered, the writer wants to convey that gender differences can be detected right from childhood. No, cannot be detected. Society can, because there are no gender differences, we create them. Society continues to be fixated on gender stereotypes. Absolutely. We continue. We are still gendered. Once gender is bound to determine one's abilities, it cannot determine your ability. The debate on gender differences will never be resolved. This is extreme. We must hope for a day when these contradictions, these unreasonable contradictions are resolved. One of the dangers in adopting a binary view of the human brain is that it can, one of the dangers, promotes the notion of feminine and masculine traits. Yes, my dear friends. If we adopt a binary view of the human brain, ऑपोजिट वाला, राइट? सो ये बाइनरी माने जाएंगे, फिर इसमें एक फेमिनिन ट्रेट्स हो जाएंगे, एक मैस्कुलिन, एंड दोज विल बी एस्टैब्लिश्ड. दैट इज रॉन्ग. बाकी सारे तो देखने की जरूरत नहीं है. नेक्स्ट वन, द राइटर ऑफ दिस मैसेज वांट्स टू एम्फसाइज द नीड टू यूज न्यू इनसाइट्स प्रोवाइडेड बाय साइंटिफिक रिसर्च. बिल्कुल, इसीलिए तो उनका एग्जाम्पल है ब्रिटिश जो रिसर्चर है. कंटिन्यूसली डिबेट इश्यू. सी, डिबेटिंग से कुछ नहीं होने वाला. वी नीड टू find new insights and use those. Questions, no, we don't need to question the findings of scientific inquiry. It's a good research. The synonym for stranglehold, tight grip, it is overwhelming control. Quite simple. Stranglehold, when we don't let the other person move out of the grip. The antonym for unbounded. Unbounded मतलब unlimited या रोक नहीं रखा है जिसको हमने. तो जिसको रोक रखा है that is restricted. Antonym पूछा ना? Right. that takes us to the next passage. Right in. The word anarchy comes from the Greek anarchia. It means something contrary to authority or without a ruler, and was used in a derogatory sense, negative sense, right? Until 1840, when it was adopted by Pierre-Joseph Proudhon to describe his political and social ideology. तब तक ये खराब टर्म मानी जाती थी. Proudhon argued that organization without government was both possible and desirable. An organization without a government, possible भी और desirable भी है. ये उन्होंने प्रूव कर दिया. In the evolution of political ideas, anarchism can be seen as an ultimate projection. Anarchism में liberalism तो होगा ही ना, आजादी ज्यादा होती है. एंड सोशलिज्म क्या होता है? गवर्नमेंट इंटरवेंशन या एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का इंटरवेंशन, पॉलिटिकल रादर कॉर्पोरेट इंटरवेंशन कम हो चीजों में. सो एंड मतलब स्टेट का इंटरवेंशन ज्यादा हो. डिफरिंग स्टैंड्स ऑफ अनार्किस्ट थॉट कैन बी रिलेटेड टू देयर एम्फेसिस ऑन वन और द अदर ऑफ दीज. नाउ हिस्टोरिकली anarchism arose not only as an explanation of the schism, gap between the rich and the poor in any community, and of the reason why the poor have been obliged to fight, यानी एक तरह से forced हो गए बेचारे to fight for their share of a common inheritance. लेकिन as a radical answer, radical क्या होता है? जो एक revolution से ला दे, drastic change ला दे. Answer to the question, क्या गलत हुआ? That followed the ultimate outcome of the French Revolution. So it had ended not only with the reign of terror and the emergence of a newly rich ruling caste, लेकिन एक adored emperor, बहुत respected emperor, Napoleon, strutting through his conquered territories, strut कर रहे थे वो, he was walking through with a lot of pride. The anarchists and their precursors were unique on the political left in affirming that ये लोग जो है, ये class, workers and peasants, grasping the chance that arose to bring an end to centuries of exploitation and tyranny, were inevitably betrayed by the new class of politicians, which is true, whose first priority was to reestablish a centralized state power. So, क्या हुआ कि anarchists ने विश्वास कर लिया और उनको they were convinced कि ये जो लोग हैं, ये वाली क्लास, गवर्नमेंट बनाई ही इसलिए जाती है कि ताकि इनको बीट्रे किया जा सके, ताकि वो जो पावर है वो कुछ एलिट लोगों के पास आ जाए. हम उसे गवर्नमेंट समझ लेते हैं, वो उसको पावर समझते हैं. So they are aiming at rather acquire power over us. हमें लगता है वो सरकार बना रहे हैं. That's it. Which is true. सोच के देखिए. So after every revolutionary uprising, जब भी कोई revolution आती है, जैसे फ्रेंच revolution की एग्जाम्पल भी दिया है, तो कोई तो पावर में आता है. So वो पावर में इसलिए नहीं आ रहा कि मुझे और आपको अच्छे से गवर्न करे. That person is coming to power to rule you and me. Usually one at a heavy cost of ordinary populations. Now कोई भी रेवोल्यूशन होती है तो उसका रिजल्ट अच्छा भी अगर आ जाए, किसी को आजादी मिल गई, लेट से किसी कंट्री को, किस बेसिस पर मिलती है? लॉट्स ऑफ सैक्रिफाइसेस, राइट? ऑर्डिनरी पॉपुलेशंस, मेरे और आपके सैक्रिफाइसेस के बाद. द न्यू रूलर्स हैड नो हेजिटेशन इन अप्लाइंग वायलेंस एंड टेरर. अब जो न्यू रूलर आता है, he or she has no hesitance in applying violence and terror, a secret police and a professional army to maintain their control. तो ये सब वो यूज करते हैं कंट्रोल मेंटेन करने के लिए. फॉर अनार्किस्ट्स द स्टेट इटसेल्फ इज द एनिमी. वो स्टेट को ही एनिमी मानते हैं अनार्किस्ट लोग. एंड दे हैव अप्लाइड द सेम इंटरप्रिटेशन टू द आउटकम ऑफ एवरी रेवोल्यूशन. उन्होंने हर रेवोल्यूशन के आउटकम पे ये चीज अप्लाई करके देखी है ऑफ द 19th एंड द 20th centuries. सिर्फ इसलिए नहीं, बिकॉज एवरी स्टेट कीप्स अ वॉचफुल एंड समटाइम्स प्यूनिटिव मतलब पनिशिंग eye on the dissidents, जो भी गवर्नमेंट के कंट्रोल से दूर जाते हैं या उनके अगेंस्ट बात करते हैं, उनको पनिश तो करती है सरकार. सिर्फ इसलिए नहीं, because every state protects the privileges of the powerful. So वो इसलिए नहीं गलत है कि वो हमें पनिश करते हैं, इसलिए गलत है कि वो सिर्फ पावरफुल को प्रोटेक्ट करते हैं, एंड विच इज ट्रू, जिसके हाथ में पावर है द गवर्नमेंट प्रोटेक्ट्स हिम और हर। अब जो मेन स्ट्रीम ऑफ अनार्किस्ट प्रोपेगेंडा है फॉर मोर देन ए सेंचुरी हैज बीन अनार्किस्ट कम्युनिज्म, जो आर्ग्यू क्या करता है, property in land, natural resources and the means of production should be held in mutual control by local communities federating for innumerable joint purposes, local communities, right, with other communes. तो सबके पास बराबर होना चाहिए। अब it differs from state socialism in opposing the concept of any central authority. कोई central authority होनी ही नहीं चाहिए, ये anarchist कहते हैं। Some anarchists prefer to distinguish between anarchist communism and collectivist anarchism in order to stress the obviously desirable freedom of an individual. कुछ लोग तो इस कॉन्सेप्ट को भी नहीं मानते, अनार्किस्ट कम्युनिज्म को, कि सरकार का कोई कंट्रोल हो ही ना, राइट? तभी पूरी तरह से हम लिबरल हो सकते हैं। देयर आर अनसरप्राइजिंगली, क्लियरली और एक्सपेक्टेडली several traditions of individualist anarchism. One of them deriving from the conscious egoism of the German writer Stirner. Or another remarkable series, this American figures who argued that in protecting अपनी ही autonomy, अपना ही self-rule and associating with others for common advantages, हम लोग promote कर रहे हैं the good of all. So अगर आपको भी पूरी liberty है, मुझे भी, तो हम लोग कुछ अच्छा promote कर रहे हैं। These thinkers differed from free market liberals in their absolute mistrust. वो mistrust करते थे अमेरिकन कैपिटलिज्म को, कैपिटल और कॉर्पोरेट इंटरवेंशन तो वो डिजायर ही नहीं करते, म्यूचुअलिज्म पर फोकस है। चलिए, द फर्स्ट वन, which one of the following best expresses the similarity between American individualist, anarchist and free market liberals, जो लास्ट लाइन में था, as well as the difference between the former and the latter. Both reject the regulatory power of the state, no, but the former favor people's state, not at all. Both don't reject. Both priorities, or rather prioritize individual autonomy, but the former also emphasize mutual dependence. अब former कौन सा है? Between American individualist, anarchist, right? So जो American individualist anarchist है, वो prioritize करता है, former also emphasize mutual dependence, जो कि लास्ट लाइन में दिया भी है, ये देखिए, quite easy. This is the correct answer. Both are sophisticated arguments for capitalism, but the former argue for a morally upright capitalism, not at all. Wrong. Next one. The author makes all of the following arguments in the passage except, एक नहीं, individualist anarchism is actually constituted of many streams. ये तो कहा है उन्होंने कि many streams उसमें constitute उसको करती हैं, तो ये तो correct है, तो आंसर नहीं है, because except पूछा है, right? Next one. The popular perception of anarchism as espousing lawlessness and violence comes from a mainstream mistrust of collectivism. ना, ये उन्होंने नहीं कहा है। कलेक्टिविज्म के मिसट्रस्ट से वायलेंस जनरेट होता है, उन्होंने नहीं कहा। For anarchists, the state is the enemy, clearly stated है, तो आंसर नहीं है। The failure of the French Revolution was because of its betrayal by the new class, ये तो कहा ही है। In fact, not only French Revolution, सब revolutions की बात की है। So B is the correct answer. According to the passage, what is the one idea that is common to all forms of anarchism? There is no idea common to all forms of anarchism, that is why it is anarchism. No, there is an idea. They all focus on the primacy of the power of the individual. No. They all derive from the work. No, not necessarily. They are all opposed to the, yes, absolutely correct. कि center में कोई power ना हो. That is correct. Next one. The author believes that the new ruling class of politicians betrayed the principles of the French Revolution. True. But does not specify in what way. In the context of the passage, its statement below is the likeliest explanation, जो आपको लगता है। न्यू रूलिंग क्लास जो है वो पावर में पहुंची जब उन्होंने लिखा है ना सैक्रिफाइस करके, पॉपुलेशंस के सैक्रिफाइसेस के बाद, तो यहां पे रेवोल्यूशनरी एंगर बट देन टर्न टू अप्रेस दैट वेरी क्लास। उन्होंने लिखा भी तो है कि पावर वायलेंस को उन्होंने इस्तेमाल किया। नेचुरली ए इज द करेक्ट आंसर। The anarchists did not want a new ruling class, but were not politically strong. ये तो है ही नहीं. Ruling class was constituted mainly of anarchists who were against the destructive impact. Wrong and wrong. Of the following sets of concepts, identify the set that is conceptually closest to the concerns. ठीक है, so ये central idea जैसा question है. Anarchism, betrayal, power, state. Not necessarily. क्योंकि इसमें individual नहीं है. Revolution state, इसमें तो anarchism ही नहीं है, जो most important है. इसमें भी anarchism नहीं है. So B or C eliminated straight away. Anarchism, state, individual, freedom. Absolutely correct. Fine. Let's move to the next passage now. In the late 1960s, while studying the northern elephant seal population along the coasts of Mexico and California, Perennial and his colleagues could not help. यानी किया उन्होंने notice किया that the threat calls of males at some sites sounded different from those of males at other sites. Threat sounds, threat calls, right? That was the first time dialects were documented in a non-human mammal. Non-human, right? Dialects क्या होते हैं? Accents. All the northern elephant seals that exist today are descendants. Elephants की बात हो रही है. Descendants of the small herd जो survive करता था on this after the near extinction of the species. 19th century में almost हो ही गया था. As that tiny population grew, northern elephant seals started to recolonize former breeding locations. Exactly on the more recently colonized islands were found that the temperament of the male vocal displays showed stronger differences to the ones जो यहाँ पे थे, जो फाउंडर कॉलोनी थी. तो differences clearly noticeable थे. In order to test the reliability, check करने के लिए कि कितने reliable हैं ये dialects over time, Leboeuf and other researchers, they visited this island in California. The island where males showed the slowest pulse rates in their calls. Every winter, ये 4 साल के बीच में. What we found is that the pulse rate increase हो गया था, but it still remained relatively slow compared to other colonies जिनको measure किया गया था. At the individual level, the pulse of the calls stayed the same. Individual level पे तो same रहा. A male would maintain his vocal signature throughout his lifetime, right? Quite easy to understand. लेकिन जो average pulse rate है, वो change हो रहा था. Now, immigration could have been responsible. हो सकता है एक reason यही हो, immigration हो. As in the early 1970s, 43% of the males had come from southern rookeries, जहां पर faster pulse rate था. This led Leboeuf and his collaborator Petrinovic to infer कि जो dialects थे ना, they were perhaps a result of isolation over time. अलग रहने से बने थे वो. After the breeding sites have been recolonized. Example के लिए, the first settlers of Anarchism could have had, by chance, calls with low pulse rates. Other sites में, जहां पर scientists found faster pulse rates, the opposite, उसका उल्टा, would have happened. Seals with faster rates would have happened to arrive first. As the population continued to expand, our islands kept on receiving immigrants, right, from the original population. Calls in all locations would have eventually regressed to the average pulse rate of the founder colony. अब इसके बाद जो decades आए, scientists उनमें notice कर गए that the geographical variations reported in 69 were not obvious anymore. अब वो obvious नहीं थे. In the early 2010s, while studying northern elephant seals, कैसे noticed? उन्होंने भी notice किया that जो Beowulf had heard decades ago was not what she heard now. अब कुछ चेंज नजर आया उन्हें. By performing more sophisticated statistical analyses, काफी सारे एनालिसिस को एनालिसिस कह देते हैं, plural, on both sets of data, confirmed that dialects existed back then, उस वक्त, but had vanished. Vanish हो गए थे dialects. हालांकि there are other differences between the males from the late 1960s and their great grandsons. Modern males क्या exhibit करते हैं, क्या show करते हैं? More individual diversity and their calls are more complicated, twisted, convoluted. While 50 years ago, the drumming pattern was quite simple and the dialects denoted just the change in tempo, Kesey explained, the calls recorded today have more complex structures. So, अब ज़्यादा complex structures हैं. The first question. So, one of the following conditions, if true, could have ensured that male northern elephant seal dialects did not disappear. देखिए, call tempo of individual immigrant male seals changed to match the average tempo of resident male seals in the host colony. ये देखिए, होस्ट कॉलोनी की बात हो रही है, राइट? इसी से पता चलता है इट हैव कुड, which one of the following conditions if true. So if this happens, then it could have ensured that male northern elephant seal dialects did not disappear. Next one. सब कुछ इन्फर कर सकते हैं, एक नहीं. ये तो देखिए, चेंजेस इन पॉपुलेशन एंड माइग्रेशन हैड नो इफेक्ट, गिवन है, ये तो इसका हिंट है. The influx of new northern elephant seals into this island would have soon made the call pulse rate of its male seals exceed. Wrong. उससे exceed हो जाएगा, वो नहीं hint है हमारे पास. We cannot infer this. Next one. Which one of the following best sums up the overall history? Central idea वाला question है. जो calls transform हुई हैं from exhibiting simple composition, less individual variety and a great regional variety to complex composition and less regional variety. कम है regional varieties. यही तो towards the end बात भी हुई है. From the passage it can be inferred that call pulse rate of male northern elephant seals in the southern rookeries was faster because male northern elephant seals with faster call pulse rate might have been the original settlers. यही तो बात क्लियरली उन्होंने कही भी है. फाइन, आई होप यू हैव बीन एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड ऑल द क्वेश्चंस एंड आंसर्स. कीप रीडिंग, कीप स्टडिंग, और अब बहुत कम दिन बचे हैं, राइट? सो टेक योर बेस्ट शॉट. मेक एवरी सेकेंड काउंट. बाय बाय, टेक केयर.